I am going to explain you the trade-off between brightness and motion clarity so you can understand why I say that the LG G3 motion clarity potential has been wasted. Unfortunately, they decided to stop supporting OLED Motion Pro at 120 FPS. That happens on the C2, G2, and it continues with the C3 and G3. And the reason is not enough people understand this feature well enough. They don't know how amazing it is to demand it. After you understand how this works, it is a must. If the G3 doesn't have 120 BFI, I just don't care about it. It is a deal breaker for me because I am going to get worse motion clarity for gaming than on my C1. So that's a gigantic downgrade. Okay, my C1 is going to be 2.6x better in motion. That is gigantic. That's the NVIDIA marketing dream. You know, a big breakthrough. Jensen saying, hey, 2.6x. This is a monumental breakthrough. So most people understand that a higher FPS is better for gaming. You know, the input lag. Let's take a look at it. So right now we have 100 FPS and we have 11.3 milliseconds of render latency. That is fantastic for gaming. Most people understand that. So that's the render latency. Then you have the input, so your device, your peripherals, latency, and then you have the latency of the display. So that total system latency right now is very low. And as a consequence, look at this. This feels very responsive. So people that are into PC gaming, they understand that very well. And people that are into display technologies and HDR, they understand that after you have perfect blacks, getting a higher brightness and a higher peak brightness and full screen brightness is going to give you a better picture quality. That's easy to understand. And that is correct. Okay? That's all well and good. But did you know that we can use that brightness to get better motion clarity using PWM? Let me explain you this as simple and clear as I can. And I've tried to explain this multiple times. I've been a man on a mission on this channel just to spread this information because I want more people to understand this, because that is going to give us a better gaming experience. Once people understand this and they demand these companies give me better motion clarity, we are all going to get a better gaming experience because we are moving the camera all the time when we play the games. So having a better motion clarity is fantastic for gaming. Okay? So let me explain you how this works. Let's say you have 120 FPS. Okay? At 120 FPS, what is the frame time? It's 8.3 milliseconds. How can you calculate that frame time? So that is going to give you the pixel visibility time of a sample and hold display. So a sample and hold display is going to display each frame as for all the time until the new one comes. Okay? So you have 120 FPS, 120 hertz sample and hold. Okay? So that means 120 hertz, that means that you have 120 frames in 1 second. So if you divide 1 second, you divide that by 120, and then you multiply that result by 1000 to get the result in milliseconds, you will see that this is 8.3 milliseconds. So this 8.3 milliseconds is the frame time, and for a sample and hold display, this is the persistence, and this is going to tell you the motion clarity of the display. So this 8.3 milliseconds means that you will get 8 pixels of motion blur when moving at 1000 pixels per second. That is the Blur Buster's law. Okay? So at 4K, how many pixels do we have? We have 3840 pixels. 3840 pixels. Okay? So if we are moving at 1000 pixels per second, that is going to take about 4 seconds on the screen. So an object moving left to right that takes about 4 seconds, so that's not very fast. When we're moving the camera on the games, we're moving faster than that sometimes. So that object moving left to right on a 4K screen, taking 4 seconds to cover a screen width, is going to have 8 pixels of motion blur. That looks very blurry. It looks terrible. So what that means is that 120 FPS sample and hold is not good enough. Okay, it sucks. It looks bad in motion. So what can we do? Well, we can get a 240 hertz display and get 240 FPS, which is very difficult to get that at 4K with high fidelity, even with a 4090. Okay, even with DLSS 3 and frame generation, that's not always possible. Okay, but if we use black frame insertion, let's take a look at what happens. So the display is going to give you one black frame in between. So instead of 120 hertz, the display is going to be at 240 hertz. And what the display is going to do is it's going to display each of these 120 frames with 120 frames that are black in between. In that way, the frame time, the pixel visibility time, is going to be reduced in half. So we go from 8.3, we go down, so we divide this by 2, 8.3 divided by 2, we go to 4.15 milliseconds. Okay? So now the persistence was cut in half. It was reduced in half. Okay? How is the display doing that? The display is not at 120 hertz. It's at 240 hertz. And it is inserting a black frame in between. It's that simple. Very simple to understand. So now, we can improve this number even more by using pulse width modulation. So this is how this works. And this is where this gets interesting. And I'm going to explain you the trade-off between brightness and motion clarity. But first, let's understand this persistence and motion clarity relationship. So let's look at this 240 hertz black frame insertion. Let's look at it in this way. We are going to see the frame this time, and we're going to have a black frame. So this period of time, so we have 240 hertz here. This is 240 hertz here. So this period is going to be 4.15 milliseconds. And this period here is going to be 4.15 milliseconds. So we can see the frame here, and all the rest is black. So in this way, 50% of the time, we can see the frame, and 50% of the time, the frame is black. But if instead of inserting a black frame, we look at this as a pulse, we can reduce this frame visibility time we can reduce the persistence. So instead of 50%, we can do this. We can reduce this even more. So instead of 50%, let's say I am doing here 30%. 30%. And the rest is black. And we can get it even smaller. We can do 20%. And the rest is black. 20%. So this is 20% of 8.3 milliseconds. Okay? 20% of 8.3 milliseconds. Think about that. That's like 1.6. Yeah, that's like 1.6. I did that mentally. I might got it wrong. But you get the idea. 20% of 8.3 milliseconds. 1.6 milliseconds. That is CRT territory. Okay? So you remember the CRT technology has fantastic motion clarity. The reason is the pixel visibility time, the persistence is very low. Even at 60 or 85 hertz. This is very low. So this would be absolutely mind-blowing. Like you've never seen this picture quality, this motion clarity on a gigantic screen like this with perfect blacks. It would be just amazing. But now, what happens is that we are reducing the brightness. And the brightness reduction, when we do this, is very simple. In this case, with 50%, we are reducing the brightness in 50% based on the Talbot-Plateau's law, which basically tells you that you are going to get the average brightness in time. Okay? So the perceived brightness is going to be the average brightness in time. So in this case, let's say that full screen, the TV is 200 nits, just to make it simple. So if the full screen of the TV is 200 nits, then we would have 200 nits here. Then we have 0 nits here. So what we do is 200 plus 0 divided by 2. So the result brightness here is going to be 100 nits. So we are reducing the brightness in half. What happens here? What happens here is that we are reducing the brightness in 70%. Because this is 30% pixel visibility time. So if we reduce it even more to 20%, that means that we are reducing the brightness in 80%. So now you understand why having a brighter display is going to allow you to reduce the size of these poles more and more. And the limit is going to be the flickering. So you don't want to reduce this too much so you see a flickering that is going to bother you. But I truly believe that 20% at 120 FPS, that's not gonna flicker. You're not gonna be able to tell that flickering at all. Okay? I know that this LG C1, based on my testing, is doing 38%. Okay? So with 38%, the persistence of this LG C1 is 3.2 milliseconds. Using OLED Motion Pro High at 120 FPS. This looks fantastic. 3.2 milliseconds is like playing a game at 312 FPS. So you're getting 120 FPS, but when you move the camera, it looks like 312 FPS. And it looks like 312 FPS on an OLED display. So no inverse ghosting, no trailing artifacts. It's a perfectly clean motion. It is so clean because this pulse is a square wave. Okay? I'm going to do a separate video explaining the differences between a square wave and other kinds of waves. So basically a square wave is going to be more propense to flickering. So the flickering is going to be more bothersome. but it's also going to give you the cleanest motion. Okay, so the CRTs don't have a square wave. That's why they can play at 60 hertz and not be that, the flickering is not like unusable. Okay, and 85 hertz, you cannot see the flickering on CRT because it is not a square wave. Okay, so I will talk about that on a separate video. But this is the LGC1, 3.2 milliseconds. Okay, so now let's talk about the G3. Okay, this LGC1 can be unleashed. You can get up to 400 nits full screen brightness by going into the service menu and turning on module HDR. So you're going to play on SDR and you're going to get 400 nits full screen. Okay, so when you grab that 400 nits full screen and the LGC1 is doing 38%, so the pulse duration is 38%, so that means that we are reducing the brightness in 62%. Okay, so this is the brightness reduction on the LGC1. So what that means is that if you can get 400 nits full screen without black from insertion, you reduce that 400 into 62, and I think, I mean, I would need to calculate that, but that's like 150, I think. It's around 150 nits. So 130, 150 nits, that's what you can get on the LGC1, doing 38%. But now, on the LG G3, this would need to be tested. But I bet that you can get easily 500 to 600 nits full screen. And you might think, man, but that's going to burn in. Okay, that's going to be dangerous. But here's the thing. With black from insertion, the TV is going to be less likely to burning because the pixels are turning on and off. So you have all this black period, and the bigger the black period, the more brightness the TV should be able to push because the screen, so the portion of the screen, this also means, this percentage also means the portion of the screen that is being scrolled. So this is how it looks. The TV is writing the picture left to right, top to bottom. So it is writing the picture like this, left to right, top to bottom. So once you have 50% of the screen with the picture, the TV is going to scroll that down and the rest is black, scrolls that down and the rest is black. So the smaller the window size, the more brightness the TV can push because it is less power. There is less power necessary because most of the screen is black. So imagine this 20%. 20% of the screen has a picture and the TV scrolls that down and the rest is black. So the G3 should have absolutely no problem in pushing 500 to 600 nits with that. Okay, so imagine 600 nits, you have that full screen, which is not really, because I'm telling you, it's just a section of the screen that needs to be bright. So then you get 20%. So what is 20% of 600? We can calculate that very easy. So it is like, let's say 112 is like, let me see, my math is not working right now. So 60%, 20% of 600, let's say divided by 100. Okay, let me see. 20%. Okay, let me see. Let me do that math here. So we have 600 is 100%. How much is 20%? So it will be 20 multiplied by 600. That is 1200. That divided by 100. That's 1, 2. Oh no, I'm sorry. It is. I'm sorry. So it is an 80% reduction. So this is the reduction, 80%. So when you have 20% of the time with the picture and 80% is black, the 80% is the reduction. So we have 80 and we have here, so it'll be 4800. Then you divide that by 100, so you get 48. Okay, we're missing 10. So we have 80 multiplied by 600 is 48,000. And then 48,000 divided by 100 is 480. So 480 would be the brightness loss. So 600 minus 480, which is the brightness loss, that is 0. We have 2, 1. 120 nits. Okay? So you would get 120 nits full screen. That's SDR. That you can get perfect picture quality on SDR with this brightness. And this is full screen. Okay? So that would be fantastic, man. That would be absolutely amazing if we can get this. The persistence would be 1.6 milliseconds with this. It's a CRT territory. Okay? So this looks 1.6 milliseconds looks, yeah, I don't want to complicate the math. So basically you divide 1 between 1.6 and you multiply that. So yeah, I don't want to make it complicated, but 1.6 milliseconds, you can calculate how many FPS is that. I'm gonna have that on the comments. Okay, I'm gonna have a comments with the math, because I don't want to take time here doing the math manually. Okay, but you get the idea, man. The G3 potential for black frame insertion for this PWM, pulse width modulation, having that increased brightness is off the chart. This is not going to flicker badly. The flickering is going to be imperceptible, and you can get incredible motion clarity. This is going to look fantastic. Well, 1.6 is going to be almost 2 times better than the C1. The C1 is already fantastic with OLED Motion Pro High at 120 FPS. So yeah, that's why I'm so disappointed that LG eliminated that feature. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. I know that this is not very easy to understand, but I think this is the best way I can explain it. And when you start explaining this stuff, you need a calculator, because you start messing around with the numbers, and yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But let me know if you have any questions, and I'm going to do my best to explain you, because I want people to understand this. Because this is just, once you understand this, you're going to demand LG to bring this back. So let me do the calculus, okay? I don't care if this video takes longer. I'm going to calculate this. So we have 8.3 milliseconds. So I want to know exactly what is 20% of 8.3 milliseconds. Okay, so 8.3 is 100%. So what is 20%? So we have to multiply this one by this one divided by this one. So 8.3 multiplied by 2, that's 16.6. But then we have an X. We have a 0. So then that 0 is going to make it 166. And then we divide that by 100. 1, 2. Okay, so I was correct. So that's 1.66 or 1.7 milliseconds. So this would be the persistence of the LG G3, okay, with 20% window size for the PWM. So now 1.7 milliseconds looks, let's see how that looks like in motion. So if we divide 1, so 1 divided by 1.7. Let's multiply this by 10. This is 10 divided by 17. So if we divide 10 and 17, we have to do this. So 0 point, and then we do 8. No, this is too much. I'm used to the calculator. Man, I'm gonna pull up the calculator to do this faster. Let me pull up the calculator here. Okay. I'm struggling here. The university taught me to not calculate manually anymore. So I'm struggling with, with simple math here. Okay, so it is 100. So we have, what I'm trying to see is 1.7 milliseconds. How does that look like? That looks like how many FPS that looks like. So this is very simple. We do 1 divided by 1.7, and the result, we multiply that by 1000. So you see that it will be 588. Multiply this by 1000. 588. Okay. So the LG G3 at 120 FPS with OLED Motion Pro Extra High with 20% window size is going to give you an experience that looks like 588 FPS. Okay? And that's on an OLED screen, so no artifacts, no ghosting, inverse ghosting, none of that LCD crap. Okay? Although I have to say that LCD screens doing PWM, they can hide the artifacts in the dark cycles. So basically when it is dark, they set up the backlight strobing to be black, to be dark, when you would see the crosstalk, the artifacts, okay? So the LCDs are very good for backlight strobing, but the picture quality is not even close to the OLEDs, okay? And the input lag is not better either. So 588 FPS, man, that's gonna look insane, bro. And it is possible. It is technically possible. I explain you how. And LG knows that. They know that. Do you think I'm smarter than LG engineers? Of course not. I started learning about this like 6 months ago. Okay? Like 5-6 months ago. There's no way that LG engineers don't know about this. No way. But it seems like they don't know how to advertise this. It is too difficult to explain to people, and that's why they don't do it. If you cannot sell this to people because you are not able to explain this well enough, then it's difficult to sell. But they can just say, 4x the motion clarity or something like that. Like 588. What is the improvement here? Let's divide this by 120. 120. That's a 4.9 motion clarity improvement. We can call that 5x. Okay? So if you are a gamer and you go to the store and you see on the box of the TV 5x motion clarity improvement for gaming, give me that. Where do I pay? 5x. Nvidia cannot give you a 5x improvement. It's impossible. No way the 5090 Ti is not going to be 5x. I mean, the 6090 Ti might not be 5x improvement from the 4090. This is mind-blowing stuff. People need to know, need to understand this. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. I wasn't planning to do this video that long, but it is tough, man. It's tough to explain this stuff. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions.